This is Don't Get Me Started. This is a conversation about advertising. And here is your host, freelance creative director and creative circus department head, Dan Balser.
Yes, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Podcast Schmodcast, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Well, if you want to check out, if you haven't already checked out the work of this guest, it's the best URL, one of the best all-time Creative Circus alumni URL, schmadvertising.com.
That's a lot, Dan.
That's pretty cool, schmadvertising. Like, let's not take it too seriously. So Katie, is it D'Agostine?
Yeah.
Katie D'Agostine
wow.
is, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I normally will check the pronunciation before we start. I just did that. Katie D'Agostine is a copywriter at Wieden Kennedy, as you know. Graduated from the Creative Circus actually pretty recently, to be honest with you, 2016. But the thing about her is she had a background. She's actually an attorney. She graduated from law school in 2012. She graduated from undergrad at Washington University in St. Louis in 2009. She graduated high school from where my daughter went through 8th grade, and she went to the same university where my daughter will be starting in the fall, which is pretty darn cool, right?
We're twins.
So welcome to the what's the name of this room that we're in?
The Squirrel's Hatch.
We're in the Squirrel's Hatch at Wieden Kennedy on Varick Street in Lower Manhattan. And first of all, if you've never been down here, first of all, I apologize if you're hearing white noise, and I apologize if you're hearing echoes. This is the quietest room we could find in a really incredibly well-designed space. They've got little areas to hang out, a little outdoor patio. It's just a really cool spot. And how has it been? You've been here for how long?
Hit the year mark January 3rd, so...
Year and a half. So how has it been?
It's been so great. I'm absolutely in love. It's funny because I started, I had a fall internship, the exotic fall internship at Droga, and I transitioned over here, and having that small stint in Droga made me appreciate this so much.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So what adjustments, what surprised you when you got here? What surprised you when you got here from school that... even just the way the workflow happens or process or anything, what is, if someone's about to graduate or they're entering 7th, 8th quarter at school or they're thinking about starting out, what surprised you or what was something you didn't anticipate?
Well, I think that you really get set up well for the workflow and the work ethic that you need to get shit done. And I remember somebody said you should at least have 7 things to show a creative director every time, which I'm learning is actually too much. They want to see like 3 to 4 amazing ideas. But it varies creative director to creative director. So I just basically learning the style and how to speak to your creative director first, then how to speak to the client and how to get the funny things through the client where it feels not safe enough to, sort of merge that line between entertaining and, publishable.
Were there mistakes where you presented work to your creative director and they were like it was awkward and you had to figure out kind of like what their sensibilities were? Was there I guess there's a learning curve, right? That's something you never think about.
Of course. No, and everybody has their own style of absolute do-nots, no puns. Everyone really has rules.
That's fascinating to me as a teacher because part of what I feel like we have to teach students is to, at a certain point, stop worrying about what your teacher likes and start doing what you like. And you were really great about that.
Thank you.
You were really great. And I mean that you weren't disrespectful about it. You were like, fuck my teacher. But you kind of created your own. You had your own confidence in your own voice. And I feel like that's sort of like, to me, that's the best case scenario for a student where you're not trying to do what you think is going to get you a good grade or what's going to please the teacher. But I've never heard anybody say this, and I think it's a really good point, that the minute you start getting a paycheck and you start working for somebody, you have to revert back to kind of pleasing them because they're the ones that are going to be on the front line with your work, selling your work, and they're the ones that have to approve it and believe in it.
I mean, you still have to maintain your own voice and perspective and point of view, but you got to, disguise it sometimes.
I don't think that students realize that, your career isn't made on the best ideas.
No.
Your career is made on the best ideas that sell.
Right. That's the most heartbreaking lesson. But it's so important, and I think you start learning about kill your babies when you're in school. Like, that's the biggest lesson I've ever, I still almost every day I'm like, that's okay, it's cool, killing the babies.
Well,
it's fine.
I think you're probably, you're a creative who realizes that you're a machine that can create more. Like, I don't think that you're too coddling and precious with your ideas. I think a lot of people believe that, like, and I think I suffered from this early on, where like, this is the idea, this is the solution. It's like, yeah, that's not anymore, because they just killed it. They just not the solution anymore. It doesn't exist anymore. So all right, so listeners, the first thing I mentioned was schmadvertising, and I hope you've gone to check that out. And I just want to talk about this is balls. So you've got on your website, the first thing on the top left corner of your grid is the Skype Dickies.
Yeah.
And I just think that's so cool that it's like the most unadvertising thing. So this idea is these little Dickies that you wear that kind of go from the top half of your chest and your arm, so that when you're on Skype you can look like another persona. Maybe
like
professional.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah,
maybe
the idea
like
sort
the
of
Rick.
bubbled up. The Rick. The idea bubbled up when it was like I had all these, video conferences, and I was like, I'm dressing up to the nines for these things, putting on my Sunday's best, and they don't even know what's happening downstairs.
You put your shoes on.
Yeah, I put my shoes on because sort of have that mentality of like you're dressed, you're ready. But I feel like
do you believe that though? That
not
part?
anymore.
No.
Well, I did then. Yeah, I did then. But I was like, gosh, we're just wasting a whole 2/3 of fabric right now. We need to cut it down.
I bought these Tommy John long pajama pants. They're the softest fucking things I've ever worn in my life. And if I'm wearing those, nothing's getting done. I don't care what I've got up on the top. It doesn't matter. It's literally, I shouldn't say nothing. An omelet might get done.
Oh, that's
French
nice.
toast might get done.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it. So, all right. So, does that qualify as a surprise that you have to deal with was there anything that sort of you felt ambushed or kind of hit you from the side that you didn't expect when you started working, or did it feel seamless other than just sort of the interpersonal stuff?
It felt pretty seamless. I mean, like learning the certain language of like how many character counts do we need? All of that kind of sort of infrastructure I didn't know. Mm-hmm. And also something I wish we'd learn more at the circus is learning how to write actual scripts. Mm-hmm, I remember taking a course for long scripts thinking, I'm going to learn about, scripts. And it was about, TV long form, which was fun.
Well, did you take anything away from that? Honestly?
Not really. I enjoyed it, and I liked what I ended up with my special, comedic drama on HBO. That's definitely never getting picked up.
Right.
But yeah, I think that was a missed opportunity because that's, you're supposed to know how to write them when you get out.
All right, that's interesting. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about how you got here. So undergrad was political science. So this is something that I think my daughter's looking to go into the same school.
Tell her to look at her future right here.
And then law. Yeah, so I'm curious about how you ended up a creative, and was it here's my take from the outside looking at you.
All right.
Is somebody who was liberated pretty quickly, because you're not the first attorney to come through. Steve Nathans came through the program, and I think he wore starched dress shirts for the first year, and then something went off in his mind and said, wait a second, I can kind of be irreverent. I think you kind of showed up irreverent, but I want to talk a little bit about, were you suffering in your career early on? Was there why this gets almost therapeutic, but why would you go one direction to begin with when you're naturally sort of a more creative, especially coming from a school like the Galloway School that enables individualism and creative expression?
The only rule was no shoes on day one. My flip-flop broke. It was all over for me. But of course, they were cool with it. Coolest school ever.
So how did you end up as a creative? How did you go from law to creative?
So it's sort of a long story, but starting at Galloway, we had this week where it was go out and do something career-y. And for some reason, I had the random hookup at Gray Atlanta while it was still there. And I got through to every single different department of advertising. We had this pitch, and I ended up winning it. And I was like, oh, this is great. I'm doing well. It was bringing smart cars to America. And then I had sort of that one book piece from high school that I always held on to, was very proud of. Then I went to, college. Poli-sci interested me. Learning about people is interesting. Great courses there.
Did you do
P&P?
Okay, that's a new program. That's philosophy, neuroscience, and psychology.
Oh, damn, no, not a doctor. Not a doctor.
It's not a doctor thing.
Okay.
No, I don't think it's pre-med. Anyway.
But anyway, I had that held on to that sort of idea. with no creative role models in my life. Even going to Galloway, I never ever thought success equals creativity equals success. It never ever came to me like that. It was businessman, emphasis on the man,
right.
lawyer.
Same experience.
Yeah, Jewish family, it happens. So I sort of went down this track. My mom was an attorney, her dad was an attorney, her granddad was an attorney, so I'm lining up to be fourth generation attorney, and it just sort of happened. I was doing poli-sci and legal studies fit in, so I started doing that, and then I need to go to do something while the job market's terrible. I might as well go to law school. I'm like, I need to prove to myself that I need to pass the bar, and so I do that. This is
autopilot though, right?
Total autopilot, and I enjoy being a student and learning and curious, so I didn't mind law school. I liked learning everything, and I liked poli-sci, learning about everything, but it didn't, I wasn't feeling the passion. And then I started working, and I just felt not motivated to succeed, which I guess in a way is like depression.
Yeah, it feels like that.
So I was just not feeling ambitious, which was sort of different for me, I guess, because my whole life I was sort of a firecracker. And my dad actually came to visit and was like, something's not right. What's wrong? And I was like, I don't know. He's
like, not what's wrong. It's there's nothing right.
Yeah. Like people.
Right. And I totally know what you're talking about, too. It's like the happiest I ever am. And I'm pretty happy. I'm happy doing what I'm doing now. But I go back to the days when I was in school, and that was the happiest because it was all about, it never felt like work. Solving advertising problems has never felt like work. And I think even when I was here in the city working at agencies, it was like I dealt with all of the waiting for the food and the healthy food, because the sweet stuff was like the concepting part.
Yeah.
And you get to sit down and have dessert all the time with your partner. It's so friggin' fun and so rewarding, and so there's no feeling, those euphoric feeling like coming up with it. For me, it was always coming up with a headline or coming up with a concept that was the exact strategy, surprisingly expressed. And I never had that before as an account guy. I never had that in undergrad. Undergrad, I was a business major. Because I was on autopilot because my dad's a businessman.
Right.
And a businessman, and let me tell you, this is how I would define what my dad did for a living. My dad put on a suit and went to work. That's all I knew. That's all I knew.
Don't ask me what my dad does.
Insane. He would somehow turn money into more money, and I didn't understand how or care, because money to me was an abstract concept as a young person, and to me, it's all about finding the thing that doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
And even though it does feel like work, it's not a drag, and it's not a drag to go sit in a one-way mirror and watch strangers handle a camera. I used to work on Fujifilm, and they had these really good cameras, and they would sit there and handle these cameras, and I was like, this is amazing. Like, we could write ads based just on what that guy just said.
Right.
And it's like so awesome. On the other hand, sitting behind a one-way mirror while they're looking at your work is like the slowest, most painful death you'll ever experience. A fuck us group is the worst fucking thing you'll ever sit there in your life. Anyway, so how did you pull the trigger to bail from everything to now go pay to learn something new?
Well, so there was a seedling planted by one Aaron Conter, who is a fraternity friend of my brother, who I remember I was really unhappy doing my legal stuff, and I heard that he had a homework assignment to write 100 women in the kitchen jokes, and I was like, fuck.
Oh, yeah,
God
exactly.
Damn, that sounds like fun. Like, I could do that. Like, what the fuck? What am I doing? I'm, pushing paper. This is a career that, it just sounded like so much fun and something that I just couldn't wait to do as a homework assignment.
Yeah.
So that seed was planted for the circus right there. And I got a big job, down the line, and they said, are you taking it? And everybody in my family was so excited. My mom was like, yes. Everyone said yes for me. And my body wouldn't let me do it. For some reason, my body took over and was like, no, it's a great opportunity. It's what I've been working for, but I don't care at all. I can't do it, and I won't do it.
What job? What are you talking about?
It was just a big job opportunity that was sort of oh, this is it. This is what you've worked hard for.
On the law side?
In the law side.
Okay.
And I was like, no, absolutely not. I can't. And then so I started to just go out and show that stupid SMART campaign to anybody who'd look at my stupid high school book in Boston. And I finally got to Hill Holiday, and the sweet woman who saw me closed it and pushed it forward to me and was like, stop showing this to people. Only show it to your parents. Go to portfolio school if you can. Yeah. And I was like, okay. So that day I talked to my husband, and from the beginning he said no, and then like an hour later it was like, okay, we're moving to Atlanta.
Yeah,
Like, let's
cool.
see.
Hill Holiday was my brother, and my brother started his career at Hill Holiday in Boston. So was there trepidation or just excitement?
No, I was full steam ahead. I was so excited. And from the very first day, I was like, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And that feeling after feeling that, what am I doing? I'm not motivated. I'm not feeling it. Having that sort of completion felt so nice. And I just had no more doubts from then on.
What do you think you're good at?
Weird stuff, eccentric stuff, not being afraid to be told that's weird, because my whole life somebody's told me that.
Or you have like light purple cotton candy hair, which I actually didn't even notice until right now. I'm saying
It's a part of
your
me.
face.
It's part of me.
What do you need to work on? Like, what do you think your shortcomings are professionally?
I think I need to work on scripts. I never got that muscle memory, and I need to figure it out. And I think
So which part of it? Is it about like hearing dialogue? Is it about pacing? Is it about...
It's not the jokes and it's not the story, but it's like writing it in a succinct way for 30 seconds or 15 seconds, and making sure to get the right tidbits in.
You ever get to do radio?
Oh, I've done radio, and that's fun. I love it.
Really fun.
Yeah.
And it's a really great training for television.
Okay.
I think because like you have to learn to only concentrate on the story part because you don't have the benefit of the picture.
Right. No, I love doing radio.
I love radio. It's really fun.
It's a fun challenge because radio sucks, so you have to make it really great.
I've heard some great radio, but it's like,
few and far between.
10%, yeah. God, I saw some great ads on the subway today. It's so great that
I love the subway ads. That's my huge goal, is to get on a subway ad for sure.
Something for some service that does housing, and it talks about like you find the perfect spot between two things.
Yeah, I've seen those too.
There's like dozens of executions.
Like a Venn diagram situation.
Yeah, but they're map Venn diagrams or building. They're really, really smart. And there's one for like these sheets and towels that's all about how comfortable they are. They're really well written. And I'm like, God, I love it. Then I started thinking, this is what I started thinking, like, how many people that ride this train give a fuck about how good these ads are? Like, just ad people, because they are charming and they're really well done.
Yeah, I think if it's entertaining enough and it's funny enough, people care. And, they are grateful. And that's my whole goal, is always put the entertaining out there.
Absolutely. So have you had stuff produced that you like?
Well, one of our big first assignments was April Fool's Day on Duracell. And this is a whole brand that sort of put itself around trust. Trust is power is the tagline, and it felt like such a stupid thing. Why are we celebrating April Fool's Day if we're Duracell, all about trust? It's the antithesis. Like, it really bothered me, and I was like, we can't celebrate it. And so my creative director had a great idea to be like, okay, let's fuse that idea into a manifesto. And I wrote a manifesto, and it ended up in the New York Times.
Yeah, I remember it. And that's great. You're standing against it.
Saying like, this will not stand. Like, hell no, we will not be observing April Fool's Day as a brand of trust. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
Right.
And it was so great. Never thought I'd get in the New York Times.
It's so awesome. It's so awesome.
That was great.
I was telling this story, and bear with me while I tell one of my stories. So I was telling a story to class last week about just trusting play to your own strengths, do the things you're good at. And our friends in Brooklyn have this annual pumpkin carving contest. And it's super competitive, pumpkin carving. I mean, it's super competitive. We give away...
Which hood are we talking about?
They're in Park Slope. They own a whole brownstone in Park Slope. I mean, it's really...
I'm going to have to stop by.
They're very fancy. And it's super competitive. They give away like really nice prizes. And every year this thing it hangs over my head late in the fall starts. And Lisa's like, what are we going to do for the pumpkin? I'm like, fucking pumpkin. So every year we did something just lame and stupid. So one year I'm like, God, you know what? This fucking pumpkin thing is killing me. Why do I have to carve? First of all, I said this insight's like, we're just maiming these innocent That's the idea. So I came up with this idea, this organization called Pumpkin Patch, People Against the Carving Horror. And we did these protest posters that says, carving hurts, murder is not entertainment. And we made these we made these orange posters with black type that says, copy with stuff like, for entertainment, people are maiming and mutilating these innocent pumpkins and giving away candy for the people who do it the best. And we put these things up on all the subways in Park Slope when you get off. You get off the train and you see these posters that called out, like, I didn't put the address, but I said, David and Cindy are like holding a party with people standing around the carcasses of innocent pumpkins. So I did one of these posters and just glued it to the front of a pumpkin without picking up a knife. Of course, we won the thing without ever carving, without touching a knife. And I think that...
It was the purity of it.
But the two things that you and I just did there was we backed away from it and said, hold on a second, like what's the real truth? Like if we're really a brand about trust, are we about fooling people?
Hell no.
And like, there's your idea, there's your core sort of manifesto. And for me, it was writing a manifesto about murder because I didn't want to carve another pumpkin. I can't do that.
You had an agenda.
But all I can do is write lines. And Lisa and I wrote all these posters and stuck them up. So I just think that like, the two things that I take away from that are, what's the truth, and then play to your strength.
Yeah.
And if you could write that manifesto better than someone else, or you're the only one that probably could have written that, right? Because it came out of your own insight. So working on scripts. I'm going back to the question, what else you could work on? So the partnership situation, you were given a new partner, not from someone from school, right? Do you have a regular partner here?
Oh, Grace Martin.
Oh, you're working with Grace.
Yeah.
You guys didn't come here together, did you?
No, so what we did was we had an open marriage.
And there's the name drop.
There's the name drop, Grace. It was requested. We had an open marriage leaving the circus, which basically
meant... How much did
meant...
y'all work together there? I should know that.
Basically, we only started working together in our very last year.
Okay.
Golden year, I guess. Mm-hmm. And we enjoyed working with each other, and then we kept having ideas and
right.
each other to execute.
So this isn't even a conversation, because I'm always curious about people who leave and are assigned a partner.
Oh, yeah.
So this isn't. This was an easy part.
So we're we'd like to work together if we can, but we'll sort of respect and wish each other well wishes if the opportunity is separate. Mm-hmm. And so I actually worked with Reagan from Circus at Droga, and then we got to come back together at this very serendipitous rekindling at Wieden. It was actually really a crazy story, because when I found out I got the Droga internship, we were sort of flirting with a freelance opportunity at Wieden. Mm-hmm. And Wieden was like, okay, well, we can give you an answer, by maybe tomorrow. And then Droga said, no, we want an answer by, 6 p.m. tonight.
That's not cool.
Right, it's not cool. Actually, Dan knows about the saga. He was there for it. And basically, I think Droga was bluffing, but I was an insecure, recent graduate who's like, absolutely whatever, I just need to go where the wind blows now.
Let me just tell anyone listening to this, if someone wants you today, they're going to want you tomorrow.
Right.
I think that's just such bullshit.
Right, I think
I'm
they
sorry,
knew.
with all due respect to whomever it was at Droga that was working those levers, that's just not... It's manipulative, it's not fair, it's desperate, because that, you know what that is? That's a recruiter whose ass is on the line, who's trying to cover their own ass by putting pressure on a junior to make a decision before they have to.
Yeah, it was terrible.
That's not fair.
It was terrible, and then basically Wieden couldn't get their poop together quick enough to, combat a 6 p.m. deadline.
It's a lot to put together.
It's a lot to put together, and it turned out the person who brought us on was just leaving, and we sent her an email saying thanks for the tour and everything, and we got an email back saying this person no longer works here. So it was a huge clusterfuck, but it all worked out in the end.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what are you excited about? What are you looking forward to? What is it here that makes you excited to jump on the 2 in the morning?
Well, I do have to say every morning I'm happy to come here, which is a really nice feeling, because I know that dread, that feeling in your stomach when you're not happy where you're working. Even during my internship, I sometimes just dread going into work.
So you're young here.
Ish, yeah.
Well, I almost want to say junior, but you're not a junior technically. So you might not have a sense of this question, but do you feel like this is a standalone shop, or does this feel like an outpost of Portland?
I think it's a standalone shop. I think it's we love each other and we respect each other's work, but New York's doing really, really great stuff and standing on its own, I think, for sure.
Do you get pulled into projects from Portland, or do you get work that's trickles down from there, or no?
No, not yet.
Yeah, that's cool. That's great. That's great.
But what makes me excited is the people here are so warm and cool and friendly, and that for some reason is such a rarity, I think. In a top shop, everyone, it's collaborative. It's, it's such a great environment.
Do you feel like you have someone you're learning under here, a mentor?
I think I sort of just changed over to Bud Light. Grace and I did, from Duracell and Fox Sports. And we have 2 great creative directors. One is John Parker, who used to go to the circus, mm-hmm. and one's Brandon Henderson. He used to be our CCO's partner, Carl Lieberman. So Brandon Henderson is my, copywriting CD, and I adore him. And he's just, he's amazing. He's hilarious. He gets it. He's respectful.
That's cool.
It's so nice.
So if you were standing in front of our grad class with kids halfway through 8th quarter, getting ready to start off, what piece of advice would you give people who are just desperately freaking out?
Yeah. I'd say to tunnel that energy into new inspiring projects. Try and beat all of the pieces in your book. Try and beat them as much as you can. Go out there and think of the ideas that are just solely you, because every other inch of your life will be dictated by client demands and, by your CDs and by the organization you work in. So this is your one time to be free and do exactly what's in your mind. And it's really cool that you get the tools to see that to fruition.
How late did Skype Dickies come in your process? Like in school? What quarter?
Probably 7th quarter.
Yeah, pretty late.
Yeah. I mean, also independent studies. I know they probably won't like me in administration for flooding independent studies, but I loved
listening.
but I love doing that because that's all you. That's, making sure you're obviously with supervision of like your CD teacher, but all of your own ideas.
Who'd you do that with?
I did a lot with Brandon and and Tim.
Yeah, cool. And what art directors?
Mostly with Grace, some with Kelsey Hurd.
Yeah, see, the thing about those is that you're working on one specific thing that you really need and want to work on, and with some sort of mentorship guidance. And I think that you could always do that outside of a class. I think you can come up with a project like you're talking about, and then find someone to just bounce it off of.
But it's good to have the structure. And I mean, we did like usually 3 or 4 projects.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, we took advantage as much as we could.
All right, so I'm just curious. I'm curious about this. This says, going back to the very first thing we talked about, the early part of your adulting.
Yeah.
When you were an attorney, does any of that inform, other than feeling like you've been released from a cage, possibly? Does any of that inform the way your thought processes work? Was any of the training to be a lawyer been beneficial for you?
Well, it really helped me in school, having that sort of instilled work ethic when everyone was like complaining about working until 3 a.m. I was like, guys, like get it together.
Right.
Like I've been through it already. I know how to, meet a deadline, for instance.
Right. So you're the best kind of student. Not you specifically, but that is the best kind of student, someone who's switching careers and they realize how lucky they are to think of jokes for a living.
So fucking grateful. So grateful.
And someone who ideally has another degree, and then they realize sort of have the academic self-discipline to sort of push themselves. Thank you so much for talking.
Thanks, Dan.
I think we've gotten to the point where I want to mark our calendars and revisit this in 3 years.
Aww.
Yeah, we'll see what happens when you got 3 years of Wieden plus Kennedy under your belt, and we'll see. We'll do a 2.0. Is that cool? Does that sound good?
Yes, I love that idea.
And then we'll debrief on like my daughter's college experience where you went to school.
Yeah, she's my mentee and she doesn't even know it.
Doesn't even know it yet.
Doesn't know. She's been chosen.
Listeners, make sure you check out schmadvertising.com, and also you can reach Katie. Can I give out your electronic mail? KK D'Agostine. That's KKDAGOSTINE. It's spelled just like it is on the name of the episode, KKD'Agostine@gmail.com. That's the free service from Google. It's Google Mail. You can reach me as always at danspodcast@mac.com. Make sure you like the Facebook page, facebook.com/DGMS podcast. All past episodes with pictures of the guests are at balserville.com, and you can stream episodes directly to your smartphone device. Thank you for listening so much, Katie. Thank you so much again.
Of course.
Listeners, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Till then, adios. Bye-bye.
Bye.